Hello, everyone. What is up? My name is Vince Nero, and welcome to the Content Roundup. This is a new weekly series from BuzzStream where I'll be inviting guests to share and chat about fun, weird, strategic content from around the web. Today, I am joined by my fellow BuzzStreamer, Mr. Steven Panico. What's up,
Hey,
Steven?
everybody.
All right, let's get into this. First thing I want to share with everybody is the old Meatball Lollipop from IKEA. I'll play this little video here.
Yeah, let's watch a little video and then we'll get into it. Oh my
So
God.
I think this is Chupa Chups, I think is how you say it. I've never actually had them, but we've actually featured them before on a content roundup in our newsletter where they created like this impossible to open lollipop as part of an April Fool's gag. And I think this also started as an April Fool's gag and they decided to just lean into it.
Yeah. So when Vince asked me to kind of jump on here, he was like, "Give me your immediate reaction." So I've got three. The first is, man, and I don't even know how many people still watch or if anybody even knows this show, but my immediate thought was, man, like the cross collaboration with this and like Aqua Teen Hunger Force would be phenomenal. The other little hot take is gross. Like this is just nasty as hell. But the third one is, man, I appreciate when a company will follow through on the joke. Like I kind of hate it. Like I would have absolutely hated this if this had just stayed like, a designed image of like, hey, what if we did like a meatball lollipop? Like I really think for anything like this to like really hit home, you kind of do have to go all the way. The other thought I had was it would actually be hilarious if they literally just straight up put the IKEA meatballs in Choop Choop wrappers like in IKEAs and hand them out that way. Like that would also be all well and good for me. So, but no,
And
I
hey,
like
I
this a
haven't
lot.
dug into like social. Like there could be a component of this that we're not seeing that's like people eating it and being disgusted. I had someone from Bottled Imagination on our podcast, and
Yeah.
she did this campaign around different like protein shakes, I think it was, and they let people from like social media come up with like different ingredients and like weird mixes, and it was like a pickle protein shake and then they actually had influencers on to try it.
Jesus.
And yeah, I mean that stuff is like the gross out factor I think is huge. Let's get into this next one because this kind of hits me with the nostalgic feel. So
Yeah.
He-Man the movie is coming out soon, I guess,
Yeah.
and I found this on Reddit on the He-Man thread and also this He-Mania site. But
I don't believe that
apparently
for a
they
second, Vince. I think that you are deeply embedded in the He-Man subreddit.
so check this out. We have this 19-foot tall He-Man statue that they, can I guess it's made of metal because it's made to be a lightning rod. And if you watch this little clip here that they have, you can actually see it getting hit by lightning here, which is pretty awesome. There it is in
Yep.
all its glory. Skies are getting dark.
Let's see it. Here it is. The weather darkens, the sword raised
Boom.
high, bang. He is truly the chosen master of the universe. Uh okay,
So
so go
awesome.
ahead.
I mean, I have no notes. I mean, it just is it. Do you think it's real? I haven't seen
So
it anywhere else.
so I'm going to approach this as though it is real because I wish for my life to be filled with joy where I can find it. And I will say, initially when I saw this, I don't know why. I know it's right in the title, but I didn't realize that this was a functional lightning rod. So I was like, okay, like this is kind of cool. And I was like, I would have loved to have been part of the backroom conversations with. Yeah, I don't know if this is a government
This is
building or
Mattel. This is Mattel.
so it's a Mattel, but like I don't know if this was an arrangement made with like a private. Like I want to be in the room where like the whoever the marketing person is approaches like the landmark or the skyscraper and's like, hey, we've got an idea for you, and like what is the nature of this business arrangement? And like you look at that and you're like, man, okay, this is kind of like a cheesy big toy they put on top of this building. See that lightning strike and you're like, okay, this is genuinely like sick. Like this is really, really cool. So
Yeah, I mean that's where all the money and hard work pays off to get that shot. Which again, even if it is AI, I mean this is pretty badass. So I think it's a win no matter what. All right, those are our two kind of hot takes from this week, and now I want to get into some of the stuff that I covered in the newsletter. This first one, this is I'm gonna make this transition nicely here because He-Man clearly has going to the gym, right? Maybe he's doing some climbing gym stuff.
absolutely.
I have a alert set up that just shares with me. It's a Google alert that finds me trends pieces and reports and stuff, just so I can stay on top of this stuff. And this was an interesting one I found. I like the niche reports, right? Like I am probably the only person on the internet that's getting jazzed about climbing business journals, trends reports, but it's maybe not all that exciting to the general listener, but my interesting takeaway here is the way that they actually did this was compiled all the reports and then put it into like a Looker Studio doc. So instead of, spending time on development and spending time and money on development and doing this like big asset, it's all in this Google Looker doc, which is actually now called Google Data Studio. Again, they've
Yeah.
reverted the name back. But yeah, just an interesting tactic. Like if you don't have the time and manpower to do something like this, like maybe a data studio is helpful.
One of the other thoughts I had, so it's in Looker Studio. I think that data visualization is getting to be such a you can do this in so many ways that are powerful and convenient. And one thing that I've been really playing with personally is leveraging Claude for this. They just released Opus 4.7, and with that they actually it was already quite good, but 4.7 dramatically increase their kind of data visualization capabilities, like in app. You don't even have to use work or code or anything. You can literally just use the web app. So this is not me saying don't do it in Looker Studio, and I think this is really good. But like, just my main point here is like, there's so many powerful ways to visualize data now, where
Yeah,
previously you really
don't
did have to almost hire a team to do it.
right. It shouldn't be a barrier anymore for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
All right, let's get into this next one. This I found on Talker Research. As you know, or may not know, I had a Rick Mon from Looker from Talker Research come on our podcast. He gave some fantastic advice about just thinking through surveys and studies and how they do it. And so they work with brands to create this stuff. And
Yep.
some of it gets published on the brand website, but some of it goes through Talker. And so this one was through Talker, and I got an alert about it. And this is for Chime, the banking app, and it is called The Price of Yes. And if you could see it here, but it's this great infographic that basically shares their findings from surveying 2,000 people. And the thing that I really like about this, obviously, it's a connection to Chime. It's a bank app, right? So there's the financial connection, but they dig into a lot of emotional stuff, right? Like clearly emotion gets into this. There's love, but there's also pressure. There's also the monetary component of this. That was one that really stood out to me here at the end. The Americans polled believe it average ring should cost $10,000. If that is true, I mean, I proposed 12 years ago. Man, I'm a cheapskate.
Dude, me
Uh,
too. I feel sorry for my wife if this is the actual expectation. Although I was fortunate in that and they cover this in this piece. She was one of the ones. She's like, I don't want a diamond. That's not, I she can't get she is too financially minded.
yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, clearly, like even us talking about this stuff, like having personal connections to this, like you can see how a survey like this, like that is to me one of the big tellings of a good survey, or like
Yeah.
the question that you have to ask about an idea is like, is it going to get us talking? And that was what Rick actually said. Like that's why they call themselves Talker Research. But like if you can get a conversation going, if you can get people chatting about it, like that's the signifier of something that is going to be successful.
Absolutely.
All right.
I thought that it was really, really good. It hit those multiple angles, like you said, like it hits kind of anxiety. There's going to be people who see this and they're like, well, wait, like it is 10,000 too much. They're going to want to dig in and see what other people are saying because they might have been thinking, hey, I budgeted this amount.
Yeah. So shout out to Talker, shout out to Chime for this one.
Yeah.
All right. Next one I'm going to share is I'm going to reshare my screen here. This is something that came out a while ago now, but I shared it in our newsletters because I thought it was very interesting still. About a month ago, this Call a Boomer telephone line hotline. Now the idea is they set this up around the campus of Boston University, where a lot of young people show up. This is Brookline, Mass, and it links to like a senior folks home and in Reno, I believe. um and the idea is just like, they have this whole kind of disclaimer on there, and it's by this site called Matter Neuroscience, but it's a social experiment to try to just get people to think outside of their comfort zone. You can kind of check out Matter. It's matter.xyz. This is a cool website, but it's what they call an emotional fitness community, and they have an app. But their vision is to kind of get people thinking about this kind of stuff. And if you go on their Instagram, you can actually see some of these other ones they've done. And this is actually where I first saw it. They did like a call a Republican or a call a Democrat, and they put them in, the kind of major hub areas. And it's just to broaden your brain, like broaden your point of view. And as you could see, gets a ton of play here, 770 likes, tons of comments. Thought this was cool. Would you ever pick up a phone, Steven, like this and call a boomer?
Absolutely, and I have to do it quite frequently, unfortunately. And when I'm calling my parents, and no, shout out to Bob and Debbie. There's nothing unfortunate. But the no, I mean, I think it's a really creative idea. This is one of these ones where it's like it's a super creative idea. I totally get where they're going with it. I will say, like, this is where the kind of jaded internet demon in me does start to rear its ugly head, because like I did look at their Instagram where they were mentioning that they put forth like these calls, and they have one call on there which is literally like the most wholesome conversation between like a new mom and a grandma, and they're kind of talking about how the grandma doesn't get that many visits anymore, and it's very quaint because she's talking about her busy week of bingo and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what are the conversations that they didn't feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was the conversation
And
where the boomer saying something like grossly offensive,
yeah,
and
exactly,
and
exactly.
the zoomers like just literally you can feel the eye roll through the other side of the screen. I bet that doesn't even actually happen that much, but in my head I'm like that would actually also be hilarious. And obviously I'm not saying like, showcase abusive content or anything like that, but I'd love to see like I feel like there's actually a really good opportunity to do some like follow-up studies on this, or even like follow-up data pieces on like, the kind of positive versus negative calls, like trending topics, like things like that.
Yeah, and if the folks from Matter Neuroscience happen to watch this, let us know. If you got the data. I like that mindset too. Is this idea of like reusing things, reusing data, and actually, let me segue into our next piece, because I think there is that the next two really are kind of more data studies. And this is Etsy, and I said this online, this idea that like if you have proprietary data, especially an e-com site,
Uh-huh.
and you can create a report like this and then tap into it seasonally, on a recurring basis, we'll say. So it could be seasonally, quarterly,
Yep.
annually. One thing I also wanted to call out with this that made me think of, somebody on LinkedIn had mentioned this, I'm blanking on who, but this idea that like the annual study is probably, especially I think it was in the tech industry, is not quick enough turnaround time. By the time, you're reading it, all those fads have passed. So
Yep.
that is another reason to kind of think about revisiting your data and like establish some recurring report that you can then draw comparisons to. time after time. So just back into this one with Etsy. This is the spring and summer report, and they do one really interesting thing here. We'll keep this quick, but they do these rising search terms, which I think is great, and like that's what you'd expect from this, and that becomes what people write about. But then also they share actual Etsy users, which I remember doing this at Siege, where if you can get other people excited about being showcased online,
Mhm.
like they just become advocates for the piece itself, and you get extra links, you get extra
Absolutely.
shares and all that kind of stuff. Now, this can backfire as we learned that a lot of people will want money for this type of thing. But in this case, they're on Etsy. They they want more people going to their shop. So it's a win-win
That's
and
right.
makes total sense.
Free advertising from the Etsy crew. I was curious something about this. So to your point earlier on, kind of having these recurring pieces and kind of the distance between the release of these pieces kind of increasingly truncating. What is your and I genuinely don't know this from, potentially a search perspective or an AIO, or if you have any thoughts. It seems like for pieces like this, particularly for proprietary data, and again, given all of the kind of new tech and the ways that you can feed data into sources and visualize that data, um, it feels like you could almost get to the point where you have some of these evergreen pieces that are updated in something like real time, where
Hmm.
it just automatically pulls the data and you can see at any
Yeah.
given point like what the top trends are and what that looks like.
Honestly, I've thought about doing that for BuzzStream data. I
Yeah.
think the limitations like that is, and there's plenty of people that do that, and I think that is very helpful.
Mhm.
And I actually talked about it's like a Coinbase type platform that had this, and they do this for crypto, and they are constantly getting links because people are using that database in real time
Mhm.
to then tell stories. I mean, they were smart about it where they were also packaging stories on
Right.
a I think a weekly basis. They would send out a weekly newsletter being like, this is the story, this is a like interesting trend, this is a like people want to be told this stuff. I think like that's part of it is like, do people have the time to go in and read this stuff and
Right.
take the extra, effort to get the insights? I mean, that's where you as a content creator can help a journalist, help a researcher, and that's where
Exactly. Exactly.
you get the
So
links.
so you're right. Maybe it's not one or the other, maybe it's both.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you look at like a realtor.com, I think they do that type of thing where it's a concept, or Zillow, like home
Yeah.
prices and that sort of thing. Let's segue into this too, because it's kind of along the same lines. This is Lending Tree's cost to raise a child. And this is something they've been doing since 2023.
Yeah.
And my point for this was similar. It's like if you can establish this is an annual report. I'm calling this a high link intent topic, right? This is
Yes.
something
Yep.
that people are going to search for and they're going to want to know. And you can see over the years, I can pull up Ahrefs data. You can see how their backlink profile has kind of risen every time they kind of update it. So it started in 2023, and then you could
Absolutely. It's a
see in
commonly
2024.
researched stat, right? So
Yeah,
people like journalists, content writers, they are going to just ask the question, who wants or how much does it cost to raise a child? There's so many tangential pieces. Exactly. This is just kind of naturally link-worthy content, as you say.
yeah. So I love this type of thing. The idea here would be to find a keyword that has this high link intent, do some proprietary research. But moreover, like the fact that you can then, once you establish it, it becomes way more valuable the second time because if you can say this thing became 14% more or 14% less, whatever. So like building again, like putting your journalist hat on and what is going to make this timely? Why should I be writing about this? And
Yep.
finding those insights that way.
Absolutely. It feels like there's a lot of ways to kind of give your own, takes on these things and go that little extra step deeper. Hey, it's up 1.9% this year because of these factors. And especially if you can,
Get
and
your
often it
experts
will
in
be
there.
right, exactly. It will often be true that many of those factors are tied to newsworthy, kind of pieces, right? Did the tariffs increase, the cost?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my wife and I just had our first child this year, and many of the things that we ordered after the tariffs went into effect, a lot of them were, from overseas companies, and we saw like just the prices start to rise on many of those things. And so, if you can then take that sort of story and say, look, like things rose, for this aspect of raising a child for this reason, right? And it ties to these news, timely stories. That there's a lot of power there. So I think that that's excellent content for sure.
Yeah. So, Stephen, thanks so much for joining Content Roundup this week. And we'll see all folks next week. If you want to see all the stuff that we talked about, it'll be in the show notes, but it's also subscribe to the BuzzStream newsletter because you'll see all those there. If you have some fun content that you want to send our way, put it in the comments, reach me on LinkedIn, DM me, let me know there, and I'm happy to share it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks
Vince.
for
It was
watching,
fun.
everyone. Content Roundup.